Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining Entrepreneurship to the Point this afternoon as we get the entrepreneur's view on project finances. We're talking all things money today. Entrepreneurship to the Point is a platform that equips, informs, and inspires entrepreneurs. And today we are not talking to the entrepreneurs, we are learning from the entrepreneurs. We have a great panel of friends and ex-Property Point businesses with us today. Lovely rose between the thorns. We have Puleng Tubane from NRP Properties. We have Teko Motlabi from Technoprop and some other ventures. And the guy who can't sit still, Tuso from TSK. And I'll give them each an opportunity just to introduce themselves. Ladies first, Puleng, just say hi and tell us who you are. Oh, we must just unmute.
Oh yes, technology sometimes.
we all learning the whole time.
Anyway, my name is Puleng Tubane from NRP Properties. We are a construction company and we're just specializing in office refurbishments within the corporate space. Thank you.
Thanks, Puleng. Looking very summery today. Nice.
Thank you, Karin.
Teko, say hi to us and tell us about all the things you do.
Hi guys, it's Teko Motlabi from Trekmo Property Services, and we specialize, so trading as Tecmo Air, and we specialize in HVAC services. So installation, maintenance, design, service. Yeah, that's basically what we do at Tecmo Air. Thank you.
Thanks, Teko. Tuso, how's it?
How's it, Karin?
Good.
Yeah,
Tell everyone.
Hi, I'm Tuso Kobayatau. I'm from a company called TSK Interiors, TSK Construction, TSK Group. Yeah, so yeah, I've been around for a while, 10 years. And yeah, so yeah.
Dude, yeah, I think you're rocking technology there with the background, but it may be influencing the quality of what I'm seeing on my side. So you may have to take down your lovely sunset background. I know you're trying to show off.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's just a bit, there's some background noise. Okay, thank you. So today we're talking all things finance, project finance. We're talking money. I often on a construction project, and that's what all of us are chasing, the big project, the next project. But it takes planning to really make money on a project. And today we're going to get some tips, advice, information from the entrepreneurs. Please use the chat function below to tell us where you're listening from. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to post it there. I'm going to start by asking each of our businesses which model you use. Are you a main contractor? Do you subcontract? Do you use a hybrid? Just put us in the picture of how you, well, two things, how you work and why you chose this business model. Let's start with Teko.
Okay, get the honors. So with us, since we're in HVAC services, it's a bit of both. I guess you can call it hybrid, as you just say. So right. A bit of both. We most of the time, if we dealing with a contract that has only HVAC, then we obviously then the main contractor. So we write split in the middle. So and other times as well, because of the nature of the industry that we're in, we find that most building contractors, such as your Tusos, they get awarded a contract to either build or renovate an entire building, and so they would have an HVAC component in there. So by that, then we become subcontractors. So they then become the clients. So we are so like I said, we're split in the middle. Half of it is we main contractors, if it's solely HVAC engineering stuff, and then half of it as well we are subcontractors. And then in terms of how we procure, we don't use any subcontractors at all. Everything is in-house, so we almost never use subcontractors. So yeah, that's basically, yeah.
And just quickly, we're going to speak about it later. Which agreements would you sign if you are subcontracting to a main contractor?
Well, we normally go for a JBCC standard contract, which is like the industry standard that we go for. But most of the time, if you had to, I mean, I don't know if we can go into those details at this stage. If we are a subcontractor, we agree to contracts of having been, paid per when we deliver material, so per stage, so that we keep afloat in terms of finances during the projects. So, but
we're going to get to some of those details in a bit, but I just wanted to, we're going to get to some of the cash flow management details in a bit, but just overarching.
Yeah. But it's mostly just a normal JBCC contract that we obviously alter to suit the project and where we are at the time. Yeah,
that's important. Puleng, what about you as NRP?
Yes, well, as NRP, in the 13 years that we've been in business, majority of the contracts that we had, we've been main contractors, and quite few, I would say maybe one or two that I could think of just the top of my head as being a subcontractor, but majority of the contracts we mainly are main contractors. And yes, we do have subcontractors in terms of labor on an occasional basis. However, what we do is we have our subcontract agreement, which outlines all the details in terms of the scope of work, in terms of the expectations, and in terms of timelines, and also in terms of, especially with the health and safety regulations, or should I say rules. So basically, in the 13 years that we've been operating, we were mainly main contractors instead of subcontractors.
And that subcontractors agreement that you use, is also the JBCC one?
Yes, we also use the standard in our industry as well.
Okay, just to make sure, sometimes they'd say we use all these words. So the employer or the client, someone like a Growth Point, would put out a tender or an RFP, and they would appoint a contractor, an NRP or a Technoprop or a TSK, who would be the main contractor. And the main contractor would be appointed for a certain sum to perform certain work. And then often, mostly the main contractor employs other subcontractors to assist with some of the specialist work. So just to make sure that we have all the technical stuff out of the way.
Especially when it comes to HVAC and electrical, those you'd find most of the time, they would fall within as a subcontractor, but we are the main contractor when you deal with clients like that.
Okay. Tuso, are you still there? Did you just switch off your video?
Unmute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you. It's a little bit better now.
All right, cool.
I'm sad not to see your face, but at least we can hear you clearly now.
Can I put on my face?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Okay, tell us about your model. How do you guys work?
I'm good. Yeah, so on the subcontract side, there's the importance is to differentiate between nominated and selected, because that has certain legal implications on its own, right? So there's domestic subcontractors. So your domestic subcontractors in our space, as the main contractor, would be all the trades that we do in-house. And then there will be specialist trades like plumbing, like HVAC, like all of that. But really, it's the onus is on us to manage, so we get profit and attendance on that, right? The responsibility still lies with the subcontractor to make sure that the work is done properly, right? And then my obligation is to discharge payment to you when there's final sign-off. And that is in the form of a final account and all agreements and all agreed parties agreeing to it. And then we go through that process.
Okay, so is your profit and attendance the same on all the different types of subcontractors?
No, it's as per tender.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm asking about your model, I think it comes into play with financial planning or financial management of a project later on. It's important to understand which model you're using when you're planning for a project.
Correct.
And
So-
maybe we can use that to pivot to our next question. Really, cash flow management. So twofold. Do you sign payment agreements specifically with your subbies? And we're going to start with you two, so while you're live.
Okay, so it's client dependent, right? So JBCC works for client needs, right? So if the contract is JBCC has its own payment terms. It has its own clauses.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll move from prac PC to works completion to final completion. So it's very important that you know how you will get paid. And it's also very important to make sure that you are in the clear as the subcontractor, if you are a subcontractor. If you are a main contractor and you've done what you have felt was technically best for the project, so you had a good foreman, you had a good guy, then it's really on passing it on to the subcontractor, so that the subcontractor understands his role in the project, right? So the subcontractor is very clear it's very important that he knows the payment terms and it's agreed upfront.
And do you do that in writing? Do you agree in writing?
So some
It should be.
It should be. Some clients have a blanket umbrella with a service level agreement. They will fix the rates and then, everyone will work on a sort of a generic schedule of rates. But then other clients are unique, you know what I mean? So you will get a client where it's tender work. In tender work, you will have to allow for your P&G, your site to manage the project. You know what I mean? That's what goes into your preliminaries in general. And then after that, all the other domestics will then follow into suit and the subcontractors. So every single one should have a different agreement, especially the specialist subcontractors. The domestic subcontractors, you can agree with them that you'll pay them every fortnight, whatever, because those are the guys that can't carry themselves. They're the smaller guys, but they should also dance to the same music. You know what I mean? Because it's very important that productivity is always there. So
I see Puleng and Teko are all shaking their heads. Guys, jump into this conversation if you want to shake them.
you can jump
Teko.
in.
Oh no! I was just agreeing with most of what Thuso was saying. That obviously all the not obviously, but all the contracts are supposed to be tailor-made to whatever suits you guys at the time. But you are still you as a subcontractor still have an obligation to understand what you're getting yourself into and to deliver so that you can get paid. So I was mostly just agreeing with I don't think I can add much more. I think Thuso sort of like worded it quite perfectly. So yeah, so you gotta almost understand what you're getting yourself into. Understand.
I think the important point here for me is and I think especially as a startup, maybe contractor, if you're subcontracting, you're so keen for the job to say yes, that I think sometimes people don't make time to agree the details, which bites you in the end. You just say, yes, I'll do it. I'll get it done. I'll get it done. But it's very important. And the lesson I'm going to take out of this is to say, guys, even if it's your first small job and you're very keen and you don't want to lose it, and you make sure you agree the details up front.
Yeah, I was just going to say that is quite true. And I can bet you everybody in this panel has gone through that at some point during their career or during their startup. I think as a small contractor, you just want to work. You just looking for the opportunity. Plus, you don't. I think at the time that we started, there wasn't really a lot of information out there. Maybe it was there, but there wasn't really a lot of understanding in terms of what the JBCC is all about. What type of contracts can you enter into? And when it comes to payment or rather completions, the different stages of completion stages that Thuso touched on in terms of either practical and others, so you need to understand all of that stuff. And once you do, then you understand when can you get paid, how long you can work and that type of stuff. So I think you just need to try and educate yourself as much as you possibly can about contractual matters.
Where did you learn? How did you learn?
Well, to be honest with you, because I was in the industry before, I knew a little bit. I mean, I was in before I started, so I knew a little bit. But a lot of things you learn as you go. And when they say, do you understand? Because you're trying to get work, you're like, yeah, I understand. But in actual fact, you don't really understand a lot, and you make a lot of mistakes along the way, and that's what they call school fees. So, but I think right now there's just too much information on the web, on YouTube, and all that for people to really learn and to try to understand the pitfalls and what to avoid and what not to avoid and what you could get yourself into and that type of stuff. So, yeah.
Any other good suggestions?
Can I also chip in there, Karim?
Yeah, of course, please.
Yeah, so it's also very important, to understand where you are. You know what I mean? I mean, not just talking to tickets. It's very important to understand where you are. And when I say where you are, you have a realistic plan. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's also good to take on work, right? Because turnover is what keeps the machine running. Right? So you gotta keep going. You gotta keep going. You know what I mean? You gotta keep going because the IP is the people. You know what I mean? When times like this, when it's tough, you scale down, you're lean, you're ready to go. You know what I mean? So it's also good to also chase turnover, but turnover bites you when it gets quiet. Then you need to think out the box, right? And this is something, Karine, you'll also vouch for me 10 years ago, it's very, very important to remain a specialist in what your field, because it's very difficult sometimes to also manage the entire project. So if you get a foreman that has got capabilities in drywall, for instance, you know what I mean? In your case with Aircon, you can't have the same foreman specializing in aircon, same foreman specializing in the domestic trades. You just won't get it right. You know what I mean? You're better off working on a good margin as an HVAC company and doing what your capabilities are. Because that's how you will grow.
So how do you remain a specialist as a main contractor? Maybe you and Puleng can chat about it. You say you remain a specialist.
Yeah. Are you coming in too, or should I go in?
No, go.
Okay. So no, I was just going to add on what Thuso is saying. Focus, I think, is quite key at this stage, in a sense that even segregation of duties, you need to make sure that when you have a foreman, that particular foreman is not doing a driver's job, for example. He needs to be focused on the job. You need to have your team, a project team, to say who is your contract manager, who is your supervisor on site, who is your OHS on site, so that at least there's that segregation of duties and who are your laborers on site. And when you have the structure, it's quite also, it may be challenging, like any other projects when you start, they've got challenges. But when you have a structure and a documented one, and even before you start with the project, you have a pre-planning meeting with your team so that everybody else is aligned as to what is the scope of work, what is it that we need to do, and when do we start and when do we stop. And in that case, you are able to manage to finish your project on time or at the required standard according to the client specification.
I like that, to make sure each role has its own focus and people understand their focus. So now you've been waiting for this big job. Everyone wants. So I need to. So we want to speak about something else first. How do you guard against becoming just a cash flow operation?
So it's a long journey, I mean, it takes time, you know what I mean? It takes time. You gotta, and that's where I talk of the vertically integrated model, you know what I mean, Karim? I mean, It's been the story from the start. You must get guys who are specialists in what they do, right? Doesn't mean if they work, it doesn't mean you have to police them. You police them with contract, right? Yeah. If they step out of line, there must be an instruction, either minutes, either this, either that. there must be some way where it's documented and then there could be recourse. Because remember, even if a subcontractor or anyone is out of line, there's what you call also notice periods, where I could put you in notice and the contract will dictate how long you stay in notice. If you're still in breach, then I have remedy, you know what I mean? So if you don't practice that, it gets sloppy, you know what I mean? You spend all the time chasing whether the guy's got the right paint roller, and you lose focus on actually the task at hand. But it's also very important to have good guys that you trust on the ground. And that's where the foundation comes from.
I agree, but with that, you need to have the agreements in place so that you can implement
100%.
when you need to.
When you need to, yeah. But you
Okay,
see-
so talk to me about project cash flow.
okay. Project cash flow.
How do you plan? Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very important that you communicate that with the client, with the subcontractors, right? Don't make my mistake, right? We've all gone through it. Don't make my mistake and just have guys jaywalking without an agreement. And also blanket agreements work if you have like one client that has one particular need. So for instance, if you're an HVAC and you have one blanket contract for TICO and for everyone, you know, it may not serve TICO's interest to have that contract, you know what I mean? So there are amendments to a contract. You get what I mean? And the amendments can be documented in your purchase order, in your whatever it is. So, I mean, as long as there's a meeting of minds as well, so they'll obviously test whether there's a meeting of minds. And if there's a meeting of minds, then there's some form of an agreement, right? Then the true test is going to be when you actually put it through. Then you can see whether who was wrong and why were they wrong? Or was there miscommunication? What was the problem? Was the subcontractor incompetent or was I incompetent? You know what I mean? So that's when the back and forth now starts to happen. And in that, that's where the truth comes from.
So have you ever with a client, which would be an employer in the JBCC context, arranged different payment terms? I think often small contractors are scared to ask for amendments to an agreement. They're scared to enrage a client or annoy them. But I think for a good relationship, it's important to have those discussions up front and to know enough about the contract to be able to, you know, at least ask.
So
if there's something we can amend, can we work on different payment terms?
Yeah, so it's a yes and no. There's no yes and no answer, right? Because sometimes you've got a situation where you really need the work. It's dry, you really need the work. You get what I'm saying? You need the work. But if you're really good at what you do, you'll take on the work and work on your efficiencies. Right? And working on your efficiencies would mean the machine gets leaner and the machine performs better. Sometimes you make the mistake, right? If the mistake is genuine and yeah, we messed up, let's try and clean it up at the best possible price. Okay? It's a mistake. We learned. We burned our fingers. We're not going back. Now we're moving
Puleng,
forward.
have you ever agreed something different with a client, payment terms?
Yes. In terms of the payment terms, well, in the past years that we've been working with corporates, it's fortunate on our side that when I started this conversation at the beginning, I mentioned that pre-planning meeting is quite important. So you find majority of the projects that we're working in, or we're gonna start working in, we have meetings with clients first, and we outline all the contract issues, we outline all the payment terms issues, and we outline if there's gonna be any additions. And we also talk about communication as well, because sometimes that is also one of the issues that when there's miscommunication, things goes wrong.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's very important to have a structure. I just want to emphasize this. And also it's very important that you discuss with your clients before you even start. And if there's a red flag, just say it immediately. Don't wait up until to the end And yes, sometimes we've bent our fingers as well, because as you go, construction, as you know, construction is not something like you're selling something and you're gonna get it back. Once you are on site, things are rolling, and you really have to think very fast and quickly. And sometimes, yes, you end up bending your fingers, but again, you go back to the clients and be honest. This is what I've done, and how can we find a makeable solution in moving forward? And hence, I'm saying I'm going to emphasize on the structure, and I'm going to emphasize on the issue of communication, that please, let's communicate with our clients, and then so that we can be transparent as well. And also, if you've got any challenges, don't wait up until to the end. Communicate immediately. And that as well, you would find that when the project has started and people that are on the ground, sorry guys, especially with the guys on site, they really like to take decisions and shortcuts to say, no, we can fix this quickly. And some of the things you really have to consult with your client to say, look, there's a challenge here. You do have a solution, but remember, you're also employed. You need to abide by the client's rule. It doesn't matter how small it is, but you still need to consult. Hence, when we are when we started with the projects, we've got the WhatsApps, where we can be able to communicate quickly. So it's very important that we have that open line on the two sides to say, here's the challenge on site, let's move on. And hence you can see, sorry guys, that women, we run project different to men. I remember the other day we were talking about, when you're on site, you want to get things done. And when we are on site as women, yes, we want to get things done, but in a right way, and also with the quality that the client is expecting. So for me, it's quite key that we constantly communicate and constantly making sure that we just don't take decisions without asking the client first.
And have you ever, have you had a client? So one of the challenges, I think, as a smaller, maybe when you started contractor, is cash flow and suppliers, because you have to pay suppliers and subbies before you maybe get paid. Have you ever been in a situation where you've managed to make an agreement with the client where they pay you a bit quicker, or maybe a deposit? I'm trying to get some advice for guys that maybe don't have deep pockets or a cash flow, but still need to be able in a position to deliver that job.
Absolutely. The ability to control costs, it's quite key. And especially when you see that this is a big project and it's going to need a lot of cash for you to start to execute the works. Rather speak to the client directly to say, look, here's are the challenges. And fortunately, with the project that we've done, and we're able, with the relationship again that we had with clients, we're able to negotiate for a deposit, even though in our quotations or the RFPs, when we send out, there's a clause that we need to bring there to say, we need so much deposit upfront. But when you work with corporate, they work differently. You must work and then they will pay you later. But however, it's key. And yes, communicate if there's a need for you to get a deposit, so that at least the project can be able to flow. And it has worked for us, and we're still keeping to that.
I think communication is key, Puleng, you're right. And I've been on the client side, and I would respect a contractor that comes to me, with a plan. Not to say, you know what, can we get 10% deposit? Then I know our cash flow will work, because that shows me that person knows their business, knows how to manage their finances. So I want to encourage the small guys, don't be scared, build a relationship, be open, communicate, but make sure that you've planned well. Don't just ask for deposit if you haven't made your sums and you haven't done your projections. But I think most clients will respect you if you can show them, this is my planning. I just need something to start with, then I'll be fine. So don't be afraid to pursue that avenue if you've done your homework.
Absolutely.
I think we've lost Teko. You scared him so much. Are you still here? Teko, have you been successful with negotiating more favorable payment terms with clients?
Oh yeah, that has happened. it has happened so many times where I had to negotiate from the beginning, especially when I've had to work with government clients because you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because, you know, not not to try and shame them or anything, but sometimes you're not really sure whether you're going to get your money. And sometimes when you're working with main contractors, you're not really sure whether you're going to get paid. So I've always negotiated to say, listen, I'm not interested in when they're going to pay you, specifically when I'm dealing with main contractors. We always try to have a contract that stipulates that we're not really interested in when they're going to get paid, because some of them will try to say to you, look, we'll pay you when we get paid. So, you know, we try to almost run away from that, because you could imagine if it's like a 30 million rand project, some client will not really, and your portion is like only 1 million rand or 500,000, whatever the amount could be. You know, some of them would want to actually only claim once or twice during the project. So meaning they'll only claim when they get to 15 million rand, and you did your work at a
And you
million.
spent all yours, yeah.
There we go. And you're waiting, you know, you're waiting for them to get paid first. So we always try to say, listen, our agreement is with you. You will pay us when we finish our work. And if you are too risky, we say, whenever we deliver equipment on site, or rather material, on site, we get a portion of a payment. When we reach a certain stage, we get a portion, so that, you know, we safeguard ourselves from you know, any losses of any kind. You know,
That's incredibly important. So would you do that in a subcontractors agreement?
Yeah, we do that with a subcontracting agreement, of course.
So two important things there, payment for materials on site.
Yeah.
And the other thing is not to make your subcontractor payments dependent on client payments.
That's correct, yeah. And the third one, to be paid in stages. So to be paid in whatever stage that you know, just have a you know, we always have like a project plan in a form of a Gantt chart. I don't know if everybody's familiar with the Gantt chart. So we would have a Gantt chart, and we'll have milestones onto that Gantt chart, and on that each and every milestone. So we would submit that as a methodology when we're going to do certain work. And we'd say, this is our methodology, this is how we're going to do it, and we will want to be paid for every milestone that we reach. And that has really helped us in a lot of ways. You know, one, if you're looking at a 24 months contract or a 12 months contract, if it's like a huge building and it's like it will take you 12 months to finish that project, you know that at least every 2 months you're getting payment. So, you know, you know, there's cash flow within the business, and, you know, you're good, and you can also take that money and go do other works out there. So, you know, I would caution people to just, I mean, rather encourage them to rather go that route. And if you're a subcontractor, and, you know, it will safeguard you, and it's better.
So let's ask the big bad main contractor how he feels about that.
I think he is gone.
So,
oh, he's still there. Okay.
Okay, so Teko has now mentioned two things which, as a subby, for him is important: payment for materials on site, and milestone payments for subbies, which is not linked necessarily to client payments.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Like I said, it's very important to differentiate between nominated and selected.
Right.
So the nominated and the selected, they must, when they're invited to tender, they must come to dance to the same music as the main contractor.
Sorry, Thuso, maybe start by just explaining to anybody who doesn't know just what a nominated and sorry, a nominated and the other one is. And a selected.
Okay. Yeah. So if the client comes to you and says, use Teko, obviously the client has used Teko before, and, you know, Teko's performed, and my role is actually to make sure that Teko gets paid when we get paid. My role is to make sure the quality of Teko's work is good. And when Teko's done with his work, he can put in a claim, progress claim. If he wants to claim material on site, you can claim material on site. If you want to claim material off site, it can be a bit tricky.
Yeah.
Because if you get material off site, then there has to be a session of the materials, and then you have to put up a guarantee, which a lot of the time can be risky. It can be risky in the sense that, you know, material gets stolen wherever it is, and you can't prove that there was theft on your site, and the insurer won't pay out. So there's a lot of risks, which you have to tell the client, you know, because they need to mitigate their risk. So if you're going to take material off site and it's in your factory and it's there, it's secure, and we can take cover And also take the cover to take it there, which would be your responsibility and as a subcontractor. And that is why you would need to also take out your insurance. And you
Yeah, I wouldn't pay for materials offsite. But please explain to us nominated and selected.
Yeah. So nominated and selected. So if a client wants to use a particular guy and it's a specialist, an aircon guy, you know what I mean? And you have challenges with cash flow, you communicate to the main contractor. You say, listen, I need a deposit. No problem. Do you need a deposit? Okay, cool. I'll put a claim in for an advance payment, but I'm going to put an advance payment guarantee. You want a deposit? You do give me a guarantee so that we can see that you are good for the money. If you are good for the money, sure, I get it, I give it to you, no problem, right? You do your work over the project duration. That's where now you recoup your cash flow in your job. But for instance, if you come in your domestic and you come in there and you do, you know, a little bit of paint, I should have enough cash flow within my own cash flow for a domestic. And when I say domestic, I mean, if you have labor guys that are there, you just allow them to say, okay, we'll pay every fortnight on a Friday. But you need to make sure, because it's a very involved process. You know, there's timesheets, there's this, there's that, there's that, there's that. So you also need to give yourself time to be able to process those payments. Reality is, I mean, we small companies, our finance departments will work like mad, you know what I mean? And it's also important not to shoot yourself in the foot by being too kind and too nice, because you'll pay out all the money and then when the job comes, you got no money. You got no money. So it's very important that you know, every job, and it comes with experience as well, you know what I mean? And that's why 10 years ago, we set out and we said, you know, we just want to be specialists, and that's why it was the interiors. I mean, that was the small, but we also had the construction, we also had, but we had the expertise, you know what I mean? I had the expertise as well. So when you grow organically. Organically. Because if you take money and you put it into other things, and then the thing goes bust, what next?
So Teko, are you appointed as a nominated or a selected, or depends on the situation?
Well, it depends on the situation. It actually depends on the relationship. So
And
if
the
I,
client.
yeah, with the client, yeah. So at times you become selected, at times based on the performance of work you've done elsewhere, and you become nominated. If, for example, I have a relationship with Thuso, and he, you know, he always prefers me to come and do the work because I understand how they work. You know, and plus, I think if you have, I think he would prefer me to be nominated, so that, you know, because then you don't always sometimes have to pay people on time because you have a relationship. You know what I mean? So I think it's better for the main contractor if you're in their corner. But
Okay, but if you're a stubby, you want to be a selected.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Because
but
also, Karine, trust is earned, trust is earned.
Yeah.
Sure. No, I mean, this whole pyramid is built on relationships. The client with the contractor, with the subbies, with everyone else.
Yeah.
So here's a question. So you're waiting for this big job, right? You're waiting for this big project, you tendering for it, and then you get it, but your cash flow just doesn't allow. What do you do? We've had some questions from one of our listeners today. I just want to find the name here. Spells Sekake, I think he's online as well. Are there financiers that you can go to? Can you make an arrangement with your suppliers? Teko, maybe you can start.
Yeah, so with us,
waiting for this job, and now you have it. How do you make it work financially?
Financially, so I mean, there's a couple of options. First one being, so you mentioned you don't have money. So I mean, second would be if you have money. I mean, if you had a bit of profit from somewhere, you could use a little bit of that money. But if you don't have that, secondly would be to look at your suppliers in terms of credit. You know, you must always have. I've learned that the hard way, that you must always be in good books with your suppliers, because you never know where you're gonna need them. And and thirdly, you know, the bank, of course. Credit facilities from the bank. That's something that we also had to learn hard, that when you are making money and when the sun is shining, they usually offer you a whole lot of credit facilities, and you know, as an entrepreneur, you try to turn them down to say, no, I don't want credit, I don't, you know. But at the time where things
No,
are
you
bad,
shouldn't.
back. Exactly. We had to learn the hard way. So that's another option, you know. So you can go and access financing from the banks.
Have you done
Another
that
option as
successfully?
well is, excuse me?
Have you managed that with your bank? I mean, if you had to do that?
Well, it was a trial and error. We had to learn, like as I explained earlier. We used to wait until we are really in bad situation to go there. That's the wrong time to go there. In fact, you should engage them and all that while you are good. Then, you know, whenever you need to access it, you know, when bad times are around, then
you have that relationship.
when the times shop, then you know you can access it. Yeah, and then so another option as well is that try to see if you can't partner with someone else. If the cake is too big, see if you can't partner with someone else. See if you can't ask a fellow HVAC contractor, whatever you are into, whatever the specialist that you're into, to see if you can't work with them just to get the work done, and you know, to be afloat. So that's another. So yeah, that's most of the options that you are facing. And sorry, one more option would be that I mentioned earlier. See if the client can't give you an advance payment before you start, so that you can maybe to get materials or, you know, stuff like that. Just maybe some of them would even buy you material. Luckily for me, I've never had to go through that, because once they buy you material, then you're almost doomed, because they know what are your prices and so forth, and you know, so they can't buy you material with profit. So yeah, but it's an option on its own.
It's an option just to keep afloat, to keep going.
Exactly.
Puleng, and for you? Oh, Puleng may have frozen over just a little bit. We'll get back to Puleng now. We are entrepreneurship to the point. We are hosting this coming Thursday a session on access to finance, exactly for that reason. We've seen some of our businesses which are now after COVID getting into new projects, but cash flow has been depleted as a result of lockdown or whatever the case may be. So we'll show you at the end. We've brought together a group of partner financiers that we work with who there are options. So important things there often is, you know, like you said with a bank, keep the relationship in good standing. Don't just go to them when you're in trouble, and make sure your documents are in place.
Yep.
As with the building agreements, if your documentation is in place, it just makes your financing or your asking for help so much easier.
Yeah, that's
Puleng back.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. Tuso.
Yeah, very good.
Oh, Puleng, you're just breaking up a little
Can you
bit.
hear me?
Oh, there, we can hear you. Maybe we must turn your video off and see if that helps a bit. Let's try now.
Yeah.
Puleng, I'm still not hearing you. We'll chat to Tuso now, and maybe we'll get back to you just now. Tuso, have you ever had to provide a construction guarantee?
Yes. Yes, plenty times.
So maybe just tell people what that entails, how easy it is to get that.
It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. Like I said, you know, it's always the most critical thing is to understand. When you understand your business, you understand, you know, the numbers of the business. So it's very, very important that you understand what the balance sheet means. You understand what the income statement means. Because when you look at that, and you need to be able to see what the bank is going to require. The bank will give you money when you don't need money, right? But you need to be in a position where you can demonstrate to them that, listen, guys, I'm actually good for the money. We're in this position, but I'm good for the money. I know what I'm doing. I know how to do it. And I've done several of them. They've mitigated the risk.
Okay, so a construction guarantee is essentially the bank saying that you are good for the value of the project that you have tendered for. Am I right, if I had to put it in layman's terms?
Correct. So there's a payment, there's an advance guarantee, which is if you get money up front, you give the client a guarantee. There's a payment guarantee. A payment guarantee is where Teko wants to be paid and he
Yes.
doesn't trust me. And then he can say, okay, cool. Tuzo, I know we're friends and we're good, but I don't trust you. Business is business. Let's reduce it in writing. And then I say, okay, Teko, you want money? Okay, give me a payment guarantee.
Yeah, an advance payment guarantee.
No. There's a huge difference. There's an advance payment guarantee and there's a payment guarantee.
Yeah.
And Tuso, do you ask for a payment guarantee from your clients?
So it depends. So if you're putting in a single tender, some clients will want a payment guarantee, and they'll want a payment guarantee if they are not too sure about you. But if you've demonstrated to them that, listen, I've been doing this for a very long time, your risk is mitigated, I know how to do this, I've been doing it for you, I've been servicing you, you know me, you know what I mean, you know me, you know what I mean. Yes, things do go wrong, but I'm still here, you know what I mean? I'm still here. So the client will give you an advance. That's where you put in a separate guarantee. The payment guarantee is just for, the job is 10 million. Can you do the job? Give us a guarantee of 10 million. And then you speak to the bank, they give you a guarantee. That's for the entire job. And then there's different insurances as well. There's contractors, all risk. There's a lot, but you can get a blanket facility from the bank and all these guys have, there's Lombards, there's different guys. They will give you a guarantee based on your financial strength.
And I mean, what do you have to do? Is it something a small contractor has to worry about? When do you start worrying about that? When do you start talking to your bank about that? Because often you need that quick. You're like, I need to submit it next week or tomorrow. So how do you prepare to be ready for that?
You see, and that's where a bit of forevision also comes into place. You know what I mean? Because it does take time to do.
How much time?
It could take, an advance guarantee, given everything, where everything sits, it could take you up to 2 weeks.
Okay. And that's if you're well prepared.
That's if you're well prepared.
Okay, so what can people do to be as prepared as possible?
For what? A job.
Just have that relationship with the bank, right? Make sure your documentation and your financials and everything is up to date.
100%. That's why I say trust is earned. It takes time. Takes time. Takes time.
I'm not sure if Puleng is back yet. Doesn't look like it.
Did we scare her?
No.
Puleng.
Oh, she's back.
Imagine me scared of
She doesn't get scared easily, this girl.
Puleng's tough.
He's very tough.
it's just my network is unstable.
I can't hear you very well. I've turned off your video now, hoping that would make it better. Just try one more time.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. I can hear you, but intermittently, not clearly.
Not clear.
No. Maybe we can see you nicely.
I'm back though.
Okay, go on. Let's see how it works out. See if we can hear you. While Puleng is waiting, to everyone who's tuned in or watching on YouTube, please follow Entrepreneurship to the Point. Sign up for our newsletter. You can go to www.ettp.co.za. All the information for entrepreneurs, like what we are speaking about today, lives on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch it. We also have different information, webinars, sessions, everything for entrepreneurs to equip, inform, and inspire entrepreneurs through their journeys. I think Puleng is not with us, so I'm going to ask each of you, Teko and Tuso, for some closing remarks, anything else you think. Just as an entrepreneur, how do you plan, or what can you do better in terms of financial planning or financial operations for projects? Tuso, you can go first.
I always say, enjoy your struggles. So to be better prepared, the best way to prepare is knowledge. If you know it, you know it. No one can take it away from you. It's just to have a proper planning phase in it. You know what I mean? And once you have it, once you know where all the challenges could be, that's when you put in plans in place so that you can, really get your project running. And all projects they've got their challenges. As long as you keep focused at it and you're delivering the quality, and it's you, they can feel you, you're always there. So preparation, you have to prepare. Spend lots of time reading, but also specific information. You know what I mean? If you're in an industry, have specific information. Know exactly what your industry is doing.
Yeah, stay up to date. I always say something will go wrong on a contract. All contractors mess up. The good ones, the bad ones, the big ones, the small ones. To me, the differentiating factor is how they accept responsibility for and deal with those problems. That's the only differentiating factor. So yeah, I agree. Enjoy your struggles, but be prepared.
Our career.
So the other things that I've got from our conversation is make sure you sign those agreements. Don't be scared as a small contractor to ask for different payment terms or things that would be in your favor, payment for materials on site, different payment milestones, stages. Stay focused. Think of vertical integration to maximize your profit and not just turnover. Communicate with your clients, communicate with your main contractors, build relationship with your bank, with your contractors, with your clients, and be prepared. Puleng, I'm not sure if we can hear you yet. Let's see.
Yes, I'm back.
Oh,
I had to connect with my cell phone now.
Okay, we just we're closing out and asking you what entrepreneurs should stop doing, should continue doing in terms of project finances and to be better prepared.
Yeah, with that, I just have 2 remarks, which is what I've mentioned before. Consistency is one of the things that I would give as an advice to the entrepreneurs, that remain consistent in every dealings that you do, and that will yield a good quality service to your client. And also I have a code that I always like and I always uphold it. And I know as an entrepreneur, people will tell you, don't do this, do that, do this. But as we learn as we go, and every situation is unique on its own. And some of the things you just learn them at that particular project, but you need to come up with solution. So this code is from Alexander Graham Bell. It reads as follows. It says, when one door closes, another opens. But often we look so long and regretfully upon the closed door that we do not even see which one has opened for us. So as entrepreneurs, we should not forget that. Let's not focus on the challenges, but rather look at the challenges as a learning curve and opportunities that come in the next step. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you. If people want to connect with you, are you nrpproperties.co.za?
Puleng at nrpproperties.co.za or info@nrpproperties.co.za.
Thanks, Puleng. Tuso, and you guys are tskinteriors.co.za.
Yeah, so you can get me at Tuso at tskconstruction.co.za.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, Teko, closing out with you. Those last bits of advice, ideas for entrepreneurs.
Okay. I think for me, what I would say is that as an entrepreneur, or rather as a small contractor, you should stop thinking of yourself as being small. I think that's where
Ah,
the problem starts, because once you do, you close out everything else. You don't want to learn about a lot of things. You get scared. You don't communicate. You always think that you don't have the upper hand, or you must always be fed down. So start thinking of yourself as an rather big contractor that is already established, and and then learn more. And mostly what has helped me is that start having friends in the industry that you can bounce ideas off, and you can talk about things like these complicated matters like the ones that we're discussing. You can share experiences and so forth. So start having people you can talk to. And of course, we have the internet nowadays. Research, read, and you can get somewhere. So that's mostly it for me. And yeah, thank you for
I
the
love
opportunity.
it. Don't believe you're small. Build relationships.
Yeah,
And never stop learning, I guess.
true. That's it.
Oh, guys, thank you, our entrepreneurs and friends today. Where can people get hold of you, Teko?
At Teko, so my email would be at Teko at.
Guys, you can post it in the chat quickly if you want to, our panelists.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I'll do
Teko
that. Our email is, our website is www.tecmo.co.za. So you can get all the info about Tecmo HVAC and what we do and the clients we've worked on and budgets and all that type of stuff. So thank you.
Thank you to our panel today, our Property Point friends, great entrepreneurs, always looking for new opportunities, willing to work with us. We're proud to be associated with you guys. And to everyone listening, join us this Thursday as we talk about access to funding and the readiness, what it takes to be ready when you need to access that finance for the next big project. We start at 5:30, it's free. We have the CEO of Ubank. We have the CEO of the Closing the Gap Fund. We have Selebogo Molefe from the People's Fund, and then two of our own guys. Really valuable information for entrepreneurs. Thank you to Teko, Puleng, and Tuso for sharing your insights with us today. And thank you for everyone that tuned in or watched on YouTube. It was a pleasure to spend this time with you. Keep well and keep dreaming big.
Thank you, Karim.
Thanks.
Right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.